The countdown appeared on every screen on Earth at the same moment, and I watched the number on my kitchen microwave drop from 24 hours to 23 hours 59 minutes, while my coffee went cold in my hand. My name is Dana Whitfield, and I was a customs clerk at a small port office when a massive alien ship called the Judgment of Ash stopped above the equator and sent one message to every human on the planet. The message said that Earth had one full day to hand over 300 tons of rare metals, 1,000 people for labor, and full control of our orbit. If we refused, the message said, there would be consequences we would not survive. I did not believe it at first. Nobody did. Then the ship blocked out a piece of the sky, a shape so large it looked like a hole cut into the clouds, and every doubt in my mind disappeared in 1 second. Within an hour, my phone would not stop ringing. A man named Martin Ellery, who worked for the government trade office, called me directly, which had never happened before in my life. He said they needed someone who understood shipping documents, customs law, and pricing, because nobody in any army or government office knew how to answer a demand shaped like an invoice. He said my name had come up because I had built the local port's entire declaration system 2 years earlier. He asked me to come in immediately. I told him I was still in my pajamas. He said that did not matter anymore. I arrived at a building I had never been inside, full of tired officials speaking over each other in 3 languages. A woman named Priya Sandhu, an engineer who worked with rare metals, grabbed my arm the moment I walked in and said we had less than 22 hours, and everyone in the room wanted to either surrender or fight, and both options ended the same way, with all of us gone. I asked for a copy of the alien message, word for word, in its original form before translation. A young man named Owen Faraday, who worked with the translation computers, pulled it up on a large screen. I read through it slowly, the way I read a shipping manifest before I sign it, and something in the wording caught my attention. The message was not just a threat. It was written like a legal claim. It listed the items demanded. It listed a time limit, and at the very bottom, in smaller text, it referenced something called Dominion Trade Statute 14. I asked Owen if the aliens had sent anything else, any other transmissions, from before this one. He said their ship had been broadcasting shipping data openly for the last 6 hours, the same way a cargo ship broadcasts its manifest so nearby ports know what is coming. Nobody had thought to look at it because everyone was staring at the countdown instead. I told him to pull every piece of it up right now. While he worked, I asked Priya what 300 tons of rare metals would cost if we were buying it, not being forced to give it away. She sat down at a laptop and began pulling numbers from global markets. A man named Leo Ashcombe, who normally worked in mining exports, joined her, and the two of them built a full price list in under 20 minutes. I turned back to the screen, where Owen had pulled up the alien shipping records. Buried inside pages of numbers and cargo codes was a full copy of their internal trade law, the same law the countdown message had quoted from. I asked Owen to translate every section of it, not just the part they had shown us. He looked at me like I was asking for something impossible with the time we had, but he started anyway, and within 30 minutes, we had rough translations of almost the whole document. What we found changed everything. Their own law required them to pay something called an acquisition levy whenever they took workers from another world, a payment equal to 12% of the total labor value, paid to the world they were taking workers from. Their own law also required a return transport guarantee for any worker taken, meaning they were supposed to bring people home eventually, not keep them forever. Their demand message had included none of this. They had simply skipped past their own rules and hoped nobody would notice, because in every other case, nobody ever had the time or the tools to check. We had both. I sat down and began writing, using the exact same format I used every day at the port for cargo declarations. I listed the 300 tons of metal at full market price, using their own numbers where I could find them. I listed the 1,000 workers as a labor contract, not a gift, and added the levy their own law required them to pay us, not the other way around. I added a return transport clause, quoting their statute directly back at them. I added a processing fee for the 4 hours their first message had gone unanswered before reaching anyone with authority, since in cargo law, a party has a set window to respond to a claim before extra charges apply, and their own trade code had that exact rule buried in it too. Martin read over my shoulder as I worked and asked if I understood what I was doing, sending a bill back to a ship that could destroy every city on Earth in one afternoon. I told him I understood exactly what I was doing. I was doing my job. Somebody sends a claim, you check if it is valid, and if it is wrong, you correct it and send it back. It did not matter that the other party was flying a warship instead of a delivery truck. By the 18-hour mark, the full document was ready, 7 pages long, addressed to whoever was handling tribute demands aboard the Judgment of Ash. Martin had to convince 3 separate officials to allow it to be sent, and each one asked the same question: what if this makes them angry? I told them the aliens were already threatening to destroy us, so anger was already on the table. The only real question was whether we responded like people who understood our situation, or people who simply waited to be taken. At 19 hours and 11 minutes, the message was sent. For the next 5 hours, nothing happened. No reply, no change in the ship above us, nothing but silence, and a slowly shrinking countdown that nobody in that building could stop looking at. Priya sat beside me the entire time, running new numbers just to keep her hands busy. Leo paced near the window as if he could see the ship from there, even though it was far too high and far too large to look like anything but a strange darkness in the sky. At the 23-hour mark, with less than an hour left on the countdown, a new transmission arrived, but it was not a threat. It was confusion. A voice came through Owen's translation system, sounding like someone reading from a script they had never expected to need, asking what the word invoice meant and why we had quoted their own trade statute back at them as if it applied to a lesser species. I answered, before anyone else in the room could stop me. I told them we were not refusing to send tribute. We were correcting an error in their claim. Their own law required payment for labor taken from another world, and that payment had not been included. Their own law required a guarantee of eventual return for anyone taken. That had not been included either. I told them their message had also arrived without a response for 4 hours before reaching anyone with the authority to answer, and their own code included a penalty for exactly that kind of delay, though in their case, the delay was theirs to pay, not ours. There was a long pause on their end, filled with overlapping voices arguing in a language none of us understood, though the tone needed no translation at all. It was the sound of people who had expected an easy answer and instead found themselves tangled in their own rules. At 23 hours and 52 minutes, with the countdown almost at 0, the voice returned, quieter this time, and said that the matter would require review by a higher authority before any further action could be taken. The ship would not act until that review was complete. The countdown reached 0, 1 minute later. Nothing happened. No weapon, no landing, no destruction. Just a massive shadow sitting quietly above the equator, its crew apparently buried in an argument about their own laws instead of preparing an attack. 3 days passed like that, the ship motionless above us, while short messages moved back and forth between our small office and whatever authority existed aboard that vessel. Each message from them sounded a little less certain than the one before, and each one of ours, written carefully by all of us together, pointed to another line in their own trade code that they had ignored when writing their first demand. On the 4th day, the ship left orbit. It did not take the metals. It did not take the workers. It simply turned and moved away from Earth, faster than anything we had ever built, until it was nothing but a point of light and then nothing at all. 3 weeks later, a much smaller ship arrived, unarmed, carrying a single formal message. It asked that Earth be listed in their records as an independent trade partner rather than a tribute world, a status that meant no future ship would be allowed to demand anything from us without following proper legal process first. Martin told me later that in their entire history, no world under their control had ever managed to gain that kind of status. We had done it in 4 days, not with weapons, but with careful reading and honest math. I still work in customs today, though my title has changed twice since that week, and nobody has quite settled on what to call my job now. People ask me sometimes if I was afraid that night, watching the countdown drop on my kitchen microwave. I tell them the truth. I was less afraid of the ship in the sky than I was of making a mistake in our own numbers, because a wrong decimal point in a document like that could have cost us everything. What I learned that week is simple. Power does not always come from strength or weapons. Sometimes it comes from paying close attention when everyone else is too frightened to read the fine print, and from understanding that even the largest and most powerful among us can be undone by their own rules, if someone patient enough is willing to check.